Chrissy is the co-founder and president of Finding Hope for Frizzle, a parent-led organization dedicated to reducing the suffering and struggle of individuals affected by Frizzle, FRRS1L, genetic disease by developing gene replacement therapy. The Frizzle disease causes epilepsy, regression, and loss of function by age 2. Confronted with the urgent needs of her daughter who lives with this devastating disease, Chrissy and her team assumed direct control and sponsorship of the Frizzle treatment program. They have a goal to begin a clinical trial by September 2026 and in fact just received orphan drug designation from the FDA for their gene therapy program. Prior to her work for Finding Hope for Frizzle, Chrissy spent 13 years in Washington, D.C. as a communications training and marketing professional for nonprofit, for-profit, and government agencies. So there are some important parallels between the UGDH community and the Frizzle community. And, yesterday we heard from Mika and Sebastian about gene therapy and their partnership with Apertura. And Chrissy's group is much further along in that process. So it will be so great to hear from her now. So Chrissy, go right ahead.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me. I feel very honored to be a part of your day and to just share what we're doing. I want to really emphasize that every disease has so many things going on with it. So every group is different and their disease is different, their setup is different. So what I want to share is what we're doing. We're excited about it. If there's ways that we can encourage and help other groups in their treatment development process and program, we want to do that. We want to be able to encourage them and help them. And so one of the things that we are very excited and proud about is that we as an organization have the rights over our whole treatment. So we own it, we run it, we completely manage it ourselves. We don't have an institution running it. We don't have a pharmaceutical involved. And then we fund 100% of our work. And the reason we chose that path is because we were thinking of the end in mind and to be able to get treatment for all Frizzle kids around the world, we need to be able to be in charge of it and run it and to move it at the timeline that we want to go at. So we can move more quickly when we are funding it ourselves and running it ourselves and picking which partners we're going to work with. And so that's the route we've taken. There are lots of paths for treatment development, but they have trade-offs. And that's where, as groups engage with us, we try to help them think about what are the trade-offs. So if you're going to have an institution run everything, there's going to be trade-offs. You're going to give up things like your timeline might be slower, or you may not have any ownership of what you're doing. And so we want to talk about those things and help groups understand if you choose a path, there may be trade-offs there. Our path that we chose, the trade-offs were we are doing it all ourselves. So that means like I have worked 5 years, no pay, full time as a sacrifice to make this happen and to run it fast. Um, the other trade-off was that we are funding it all ourselves. And that is really hard work to fundraise. But the benefits of us doing this is we're going fast, we're in control, we own it, and it will not get shelved or stopped or put to the side. We de-risked our program by making sure we're in control of it, but it means we have to step up in other ways to make it happen. So there's trade-offs in all the different paths, and groups have to choose which path they're going to go, but recognize they may or may not be giving up something in exchange for that pathway. So I just wanted to kind of explain that up front, why we're doing what we're doing. We are excited about it, and we have seen the blessing and benefit of the hard work to move faster. And that's what we're excited to share. So this is my family here. I just wanted to show this picture. This is my daughter, Everly. She has Frizzle. She's 8 now. Frizzle is a devastating genetic disease. It's a DEE. You guys were just talking about that. So we're DEE type 37. And I'm going to talk a little bit through the disease, our treatment, and then our program really quickly. So who we are, The other thing that we kind of very clearly decided as a group is we are intentionally small as an organization, and we have no paid staff. And that is so that all the money that we fundraise goes directly to treatment. We have found partners and advisors who are willing to work with us on a volunteer basis, and that's been extremely helpful. But our mission is really to develop treatment first and foremost, but we also support our Frizzle community and are very passionate about awareness both for Frizzle, but also supporting other rare disease groups. This is our board. Again, we keep it intentionally small because our board can meet quickly for quick decision making and discussion. And our model is to keep our organization smaller and bring in key advisors that we can talk with. But as a team, we can be very mobile and fast. And so that's kind of our approach. These are a couple of our advisors that we work with. So Neil is with Weill Cornell. He's been with us from the beginning, but he supports a lot of rare disease groups. Our good friend Ryan works for Parexel. He does FDA and regulatory. And then kind of the one that we really are thankful is RTW Foundation. More groups are learning about them in rare disease, but they are very passionate about helping rare disease through advising, and then they also give out grants. And so we were one of their grant recipients. So I know you guys had Andrew yesterday. So we, in February this year, announced publicly that we had partnered with Aperture Gene Therapy to license their TFR1 CapEx technology. I'm not sure what all Andrew talked about, so hopefully none of this is repeat, but we're very excited about this. Our relationship with them literally started a year ago. And that is a big part of our story, is that being in control of our treatment allowed us to adapt and change and make decisions on our own. And we weren't tied to one program or institution that locked us in. We were able to choose a different path on our own. And so we chose last year to totally change our program and work with Apertura to license our capsid. So we are pursuing gene replacement therapy with them using their capsid with our Frizzle gene inside. So this is the Apertura team. Like I said, you talked with Andrew, but these are the different team members who are supporting us, and we're thankful for them as well. Dr. Ben Deverman is the scientist who developed CapEx. So he works for the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard, and he's directly involved in our program as well. And he is the lead scientist for the Aperture gene therapy as well. So our disease shows up all over the world. I'm talking really fast, so let me know if I need to stop at all. But our Frizzle gene disease is all over the world. So we see it all across people groups and nationalities and countries. And that is very important as we look at our disease and what kind of treatment we're pursuing. So with Frizzle, very specifically, to have the disease, you have to have two non-functioning copies of Frizzle. And because they're non-functioning, then their role in the brain is basically to help build the AMPA receptors that sit on the outside of your cells in your brain that that provide the messaging between cells. So because Frizzle is non-functioning, it's not doing its job. So the AMPA receptors are not being built. So the messaging is not going through to the cells. So we see it affect the motor function messaging in our kids. So what happens is our kids are delayed when around like 7 months, they start to show signs of delayed development, but very specifically by the age of 2, seizures begin. Their epilepsy is severe, relentless, and no medications can stop it or control it. And they rapidly regress. So for my daughter, she had a seizure, her first seizure on November 1st, woke up the next morning, couldn't hold her head up, was drooling, wasn't using her arms and hands anymore, and very quickly needed a feeding tube and lost her ability to chew, swallow. Basically, the kids just lay flat on a table and can't move. However, our kids are cognitively capable and are inside. We know that they understand. Some of the kids, especially, have been able to show cognition through using an eye gaze device. So for my daughter, the one thing she can still control on her body are her eyes. So she uses an eye gaze computer to speak with us, and that has been really helpful to show the cognition, the level of cognition that they have. And so Frizzle really specifically is taking away all motor function for them. Um, so uh, when we're looking at our disease, because it takes two non-functioning copies of Frizzle, our carriers don't have symptoms. So I'm a carrier, my husband, my other sons are carriers. The affected patient has to have the two non-functioning copies, and this is really helpful for our drug development because we have found for Frizzle disease that our patients, no matter where they're from in the world, or people group or background, all of our patients' disease and symptoms look exactly the same. And so that is helpful when we're pursuing endpoints in a clinical trial. But that's really important when we're looking at our disease development, is that our carriers do not have symptoms. It's just our double recessive that have symptoms. Some of our families have two kids, which is really, really, really hard. None of our kids have head control or body control. So these kids have wheelchairs that are supporting all different parts of their bodies and head supports. Some of the patients even get a spinal fusion. So one of our kids right here, the boy in this picture with the red tie, he had his spine fused so that he can sit up straight, but otherwise he'd be slumped over. So he looks a little bit more in control, but he actually had a major surgery to provide that. And so our kids are severe. They need 24/7 care at all times. Some are on trachs, many are on vents. They have all different types of surgeries. They have cerebral palsy. They have hip dysplasia. We have urinary issues. Respiratory failure is honestly our hardest thing we have is the kids struggle. Pneumonia or a seizure that doesn't stop is usually the biggest threat to life, as well as infections for our patients. But very, very severe kids needing intensive care around the clock. So what we're doing for our treatment. So I talked about Frizzle has this job of doing the assembly line right here to build these AMPA receptors on the outside of the cell. And because Frizzle is not functioning, that's not happening. So we don't have the AMPA receptors. So what we chose was gene replacement therapy, and we are pursuing that because we do not want to treat symptoms. We want to fix the root problem. And because we know what Frizzle does in the brain or what Frizzle doesn't do in the brain, we want to get a good copy of Frizzle to the brain to be able to see the function restored. And so the way I kind of like to explain this is that with gene therapy, if someone doesn't understand it, which maybe you guys have better understanding, I like to think of it as a suitcase, and that's the suitcase is what's going to take our Frizzle gene to the brain. In this case, we have licensed Apatura's capsid as our suitcase, and that will be dosed intravenously through an IV. And that will cross the blood-brain barrier to deliver our therapy into the neurons in the brain to deliver a good copy of Frizzle. We had great efficacy work that we did previously where we saw our Frizzle diseased mice model when treated with gene replacement therapy came back to function. And we saw that both in the rebuilding of AMPA receptors in the brain as well as their motor function coming back to them. So we're very hopeful and excited that if we can get the therapy to the brain, that our kids' function will be restored. So we licensed CapX and kind of to help understand where we are in what's going on with our development process. So when a year ago, right now, a year ago, we were at stage 2. And within 1 year, we are now getting ready to do our clinical trial by this fall. So we have moved very, very fast. And we're excited about that. And that was because we are in charge, we're running it, and we have great partners lined up who are helping us. So we are getting ready for clinical trials right now. That is where we are in our process. Again, this is just talking about the capsid and the fact that we have a good copy of Frizzle. I'm sure Andrew maybe already talked about this, but basically CapX is the highlight is that it's dosed intravenously. So other traditional AAV9 gene therapies are dosed through either the lumbar, the sternum magnum, or even just going straight through the top of the skull. For us, that's brain surgery. It's very invasive. And our excitement with CapEx is that for our global patient population, intravenous delivery is scalable and more accessible for our future patient population of getting this to all Frizzle patients. And so we were excited about that. We also are excited about the fact that the hope is that as this crosses the blood-brain barrier, that it will distribute evenly all over the brain and that we will hit more neurons to deliver our therapy and see a better recovery in our patients. And so that's why we chose CapEx. This is a picture of AAV9 when delivered, so a traditional method of delivery versus what CapEx is hopefully going to do. This is mice brains, not human brains. And so it shows the lit up green is where the therapy got all over the brain, and that is CapEx. And so when we saw that, we were very excited because we need to hit as much of the brain as possible with our therapy. This is kind of the same thing I already said why we chose to do CapEx, but we are at the stage of preparing for clinical trials, and we're excited about that. It is because we've been able to be in charge of our program that we made the decision ourselves as parents to switch over to CapEx, and then we got the right people in the room to be a part of our team who are across institutions who want to be a part of this and help us move forward, and we are moving very fast. And then our donor base sees our daily lives and how hard it is to take care of these kids, and they are excited at the hope of recovery. And so we've been able to fundraise very quickly to be able to pay for each stage of the program. So that's it. I tried to talk really fast because I want to be able to leave time for questions. So would love to answer any questions. Again, this is our program, but anything I can do to encourage you guys in what you guys are doing and your disease, I would love to be a help.
Amazing. Thank you for that talk. We have a question in the chat. What endpoints and outcome measures will be used in the clinical trial?
So we are very specifically like next weekend having our Frizzle family forum, that's what we call it, and briefing out on our clinical stuff. So we try to brief out our families first. So we haven't publicly talked about our clinical trial yet. We haven't announced our partner yet. Um, like one of the obvious ones will be epilepsy. Like that is a very obvious one because we're a DEE. And so I'll probably won't dive into that right now in all the specifics because we want to talk through it with our families first. But that will be a piece of it is specifically the epilepsy.
We've, been encouraged multiple times on our whole, development, get natural history, get samples, get natural history, get samples. How much did you find, how much of that data was ready for you guys? How much did you need to develop with the objective of gene therapy in mind?
So one of the things I learned this very early on with my daughter, with doctors, is saying, why do we need to do something? And do we have to do it now or can we do it later? That's what I've learned to ask doctors. And so we've applied that very much to our program. Like, you're saying I need to do something. Why? And is it a now thing or can it be a later thing? Especially because our dollars are few and we have to be really careful with them because we're fundraising all of them. And so we are constantly picking and choosing and evaluating what is absolutely critical to keep moving forward and what can wait. So our approach was specifically to do a retrospective study on our patients, and we are coupling our natural history with our clinical trial and ramping that up in that chunk of phase. So we're preparing that now, and we did retrospective research previously, and so I know most groups will start with natural history, and we intentionally chose not to. We decided to do that later. So yeah, that was our approach. But I think as you get into programs or are working with different physicians or institutions, I think just asking like, is this a now thing or a later thing? Is this a must thing or is it a nice to have? And being able to ask different advisors, to evaluate those things for you.
Are you able to elaborate any more on exactly how you did a retrospective? study?
Yeah. Yeah, so we partnered with a group called Adelphi Research, and they did a disease conceptual model and then caregiver burden assessments. So they did a large literature review of the disease, and then they also did interviews with our patient population. So hour-long interviews to capture all the data points. We found with our disease specifically, it is very helpful to do an in-person interview rather than a survey because we have pre-regression and post-regression. And if you ask just, do they have seizures? Well, are you talking pre-regression, post-regression? We have to start to distinguish out a little bit more. And so surveys can very easily confuse our or our parent caregiver population. And so we chose the route of an interview, and that was incredibly helpful for getting clear data points from our patient population. And so that was a process of them interviewing and collecting, and then we that should be publishing any data.
Looks like we have one final question from the chat. Was most of your work done through CROs?
So we did our preclinical work with an institution, and then everything else we have done all on our own. So we go find our partners. So we get bids on everything, we evaluate them, we meet with them, we discuss with them. And so we interview and decide ourselves which partner we're going to work with. And where that comes into play is I was just at AHGCT and we were talking about what is a good partnership? How do you find a good partner? For us, we need a partner who values the same things as us. And so that means, do they value our mission? Are they really trying to help rare disease? Do they value our timeline that we want to go fast? And then do they value our dollars? Are they going to give us discounts and support in ways that are different than a pharmaceutical company and that they value what we're doing and our dollars are limited and that they will do as much as they can to make it as feasible as possible for us as an organization to fund this. And so we have found great partners. All of our partners are on our website. We are so thankful for the people we are working with, and we very much share who that is because we think they are doing good things in the industry to support rare disease. But we manage all those relationships ourselves. The contract is directly with our organization. We fund it. We get all the rights to everything. We own everything. The data is ours, but we manage all of that. And we'd love to see more groups be either in the ownership or have rights over their treatments. If they are not in a position where they can access that or push for it, then making sure that you are in the room with the decision makers. Say, we want to see at the table. We want to be deciding. We want to have our voice be like one of the most important voices in this discussion, because as the parents and the patients, we are not going to give up on our kids. We're not going to give up on ourselves. We're not going to give up on pursuing treatment. And that is the importance of being at the table. There's been a lot of, focus on like pharma and institutions, like we need to bring the patients in and hear their voice. Yeah, but they're doing that in like small increments and it's not in the decision making. It's in the like, well, how do you feel about this? Or what do you want for the endpoints? Like you guys should be involved in like helping pick the partner. Is this who you really want to work with? Is this a partner that like values the same thing? So recognizing every group and their situation is different, but whatever situation you're in, encouraging you to get more and more involved in that inner room of the decision making, whatever that looks like, and just hoping that groups will pursue that because we do have a right to be in there with our voice and directing this because we're not going to give up on
Chrissy, thank you so much. It was so great to
it.
hear from you. You'll probably be hearing more from us afterward.
Keep going.
We are
It's like
following your story so eagerly. So thank you again for presenting.